Hey there and welcome back to Mass Effect. My name is Pete and today we complete the third and final part of the Bring Down the Sky DLC. Last time we shut down the second and third fusion torch on Asteroid X57, so at least in theory we have already saved the colony of Terra Nova from a potentially fatal crash. However, we still need to deal with the man responsible. The Batarian terrorist Balak already sent one of his henchmen to take us down last time, but in the end that did not really work out for him. In the following firefight we killed Balak's Lieutenant Charn, and from his dead body we were able to acquire a keycard. That keycard will give us access to Balak's hideout, and that is exactly where we're going today. There are a few things we can take care of beforehand, however, and one of those things is to complete the missing engineers assignment. On top of the hill here we can find the body of another dead engineer, however, and I think that's interesting, one that is not part of the assignment. Still, his name has come up before. This guy was actually supposed to relieve Engineer Mendel, who was the first dead engineer we found on the asteroid. So it seems that both Mendel and his backup have met the same fate. That, however, still leaves us with one more engineer to find. By the way, it is not necessary to find all 3 engineers before taking on Balak, since the assignment cannot be completed before we deal with him anyway. For me personally, it just makes sense to leave the confrontation with Balak as the final to-do here, but it is of course possible to deal with him first and then take care of the missing engineers later. And we have now reached the 3rd research outpost, where hopefully we can also find the 3rd engineer. Inside though, first of all a hardened crate and then only a log entry. This one telling us that as a result of the attack, Engineer Montoya has armed the defense drones. And so we now have a rather surprising firefight on our hands. The drones are nothing that we can't handle though. There are 3 of them in total, none of them have the ability to shoot rockets or anything truly dangerous at us, and since we have access to abilities like Sabotage and Overload on Kaidan, this fight doesn't last all that long. Afterwards, we can find and examine some footsteps on the ground. These seem to be leading off towards the east, so let's hop back inside of the Mako and investigate. Just a few seconds later, we discover Montoya's body, shot in the head by a sniper. With that, we have now found all 3 missing engineers and also one of their backups, all of them dead sadly, but those findings are enough to eventually complete the missing engineers assignment. For that, however, we will have to talk to Simon Atwill, and that still has to wait for a while. First, we'll have to take care of Balak, and that is exactly what we'll do next. The assault on his base is long overdue, so let's quickly speed things up until we get there. Now here we are, and as you will shortly see, Balak's base is a bit different than the others. We are once again greeted by a large number of turrets outside, however there is also a new kind of turret. There are 6 turrets in total here, 3 of the ones that we already know, the ones with the retractable cover, and 3 turrets that can move. Those turrets are on rails, and that makes them especially annoying, because they are harder to hit and their line of fire also constantly changes. Now this can be an extremely hard fight if you tackle it head on, but I did find a rather convenient solution. As you can see, driving through the entire base and then parking the Mako behind the buildings provides us with a lot of cover. The only real challenge is to take out the first turret on rails without taking too much damage. Afterwards we can then evade most of the projectiles by simply peeking around the corner from time to time. Now, I know I said the moving turrets are a bit annoying, but I also find them to be a bit over-designed. What I mean by that is the fact that just because they're moving doesn't make them more effective. And honestly, I think it actually makes them weaker, especially at long range, and I think you will see that at the end of this fight. They tend to be very inaccurate, and for me the only logical explanation for that is the fact that they are shooting while moving. And on one hand I like that because it's also harder for us to hit somebody while we're moving, but on the other hand those turrets are machines that are designed for only one thing, and that is to hit what they're shooting at. And I honestly think that the stationary turrets do a far better job at that. Now that might only be me, I didn't play through this fight all that often, but at least for me I didn't find those moving turrets as dangerous as they appeared to be. Now we have already taken out half of the turrets around the base, and what follows is a bit of target practice. One might consider this a slight exploit, but then again on Insanity difficulty we'll take everything the game gives us. It is actually possible to hit the heavy turret on the other side through the bars of the turret above, and if you're lucky, the turret on the other side won't even fire back. But even if it does, chances are high that its projectile never reaches you, simply because there are too many bars in the way that block the line of fire, and the AI does not seem to take those into account when taking a shot. So while this can be a bit of a tedious process, it is also the safest approach to take out the last stationary turret. Now we only have 2 moving turrets to take out, and the first one is conveniently placed right above our head. And this one moves almost at a right angle towards and away from us, and since the Mako is a bit more versatile when it comes to angles, we definitely have the upper hand in this fight. I'm actually not quite sure if it's possible to damage the turret while it's inside of his little hiding box. It is definitely not possible if the turret is inactive, however if it's active and moving, I'm not quite sure if it's actually invincible here. And here we are, that's 5 of 6 turrets down, only 1 more left. For that one we will go all the way back around for the best possible angle, and while we should of course not underestimate this last turret, the fight is pretty much over at this point. Here you should also be able to see that the turret is slightly inaccurate, sometimes its shots are just way off. All in all, just like with the previous 5, we'll also make quick work of this one. And that is the exterior cleared. Now it's time to move the Mako up to the base and enter. The entrance here is locked, that is indicated by the red light, but the keycard that we grabbed of Charn's dead body will get us in. Inside, the first thing we can do is grab ourselves some Medigel and grenades, not that we would need them, but I also don't plan on coming back here after the fight. Then we can head inside, and that is where things get a bit tricky. Now there is a group of Batarian troopers over to the right that we can immediately hit with an overload. That will also blow up the explosive container next to them, and that deals a lot of damage, and that is important because our main focus here is to get the shock trooper down as quickly as possible. This first group is rather easy to take care of, after all it's just 3 enemies, but now is where things get a bit more interesting. Scattered throughout the entire area, and it is a large one, we have 5 more standard troopers, 2 shock troopers and 2 engineers, as well as 1 more drone. All at once, those can and will present us with a nice challenge, so it's a good idea to not let things come that far. From the upper level here we have a slightly better overview, and with a well-trained sniper skill we can definitely make use of that. And that actually allows us to take 1 more trooper down without being disturbed. However, the Batarians like themselves some flanking. The balcony goes around the entire area here, so worst case scenario the Batarians can appear from both sides. In most cases though they appear from the right side, because over to that right side is something that was once used as a medical bay, and I believe 1 group of enemies actually spawns there. Now as soon as you see an engineer, try to immediately disable them or switch weapons, otherwise you risk getting hit with a sabotage and having your main weapon taken away from you, in this case the assault rifle, that can really hurt you in this fight. These engineers also have an ability that somewhat resembles damping. If you look at the wiki it's actually not listed under their abilities, but this guy right here did manage to disable all of our squad's abilities, and that is after all the core concept of damping. Now, however, we are somewhat off the hook, since both engineers decided to rush us on their own. That allowed us to take them out quickly and without taking much damage in the process, and we can now focus on the troopers and shock troopers who are slightly less dangerous. By the way, a well-placed lift or throw can potentially knock an enemy over the railing, and especially on the lower level of this area there are some railings where that means instant death. Now for some reason 1 more engineer showed up, one that I had definitely not accounted for, and he promptly hit us with his damping ability, which made for a few confusing moments. Around this point I also realized how heavily I was relying on Kaidan for crowd control in this playthrough, and I have to admit my appreciation for Kaidan as a squad mate has gone through the roof in this series. I think for my first 2 or 3 playthroughs I didn't care much about him, but strictly from a gameplay point of view, as long as we're not fighting hordes of Geth, I would take him over Tali any day of the week. Now that doesn't change the fact that I find Kaidan's character pretty bland in Mass Effect 1, but as a pure crowd control ability spammer he's only being rivaled by Liara. And with her we always have the problem that she doesn't have a single tech skill, but I think I actually talked about this a while back. Now at this point you can see that we have not taken out all the enemies in the area just yet. There is a single red dot still left on the minimap, and that dot is located inside of the aforementioned medical bay, so it seems like one of the Batarians has gotten lost in there. Well, let's help the poor guy out. Alright, now we can go back, and with all enemies taken care of, one last guy will spawn, and he is located inside of the small container here, but is all on his own and falls incredibly quickly.
Die, human. You humans. You're almost more trouble than you're worth.
So, Mr. Balak, we meet at last. Do you maybe care for a short explanation?
Let the hostages go, and maybe you'll live long enough to explain yourself to the Council.
I don't answer to the Council. Or to you. I'm leaving this asteroid. If you try to stop me, I'll detonate these charges, and your helper and her friends are all going to die.
I don't really believe you expect us to just let you walk.
I can't just let you go, Balak. Not after what happened here.
This is nothing. You humans have done far worse to the Batarians. We've been forced into exile, forced to survive on what we can scrounge up. It's been like that for decades.
And that is why you attack innocent colonists.
Why take it out on these people? They didn't do anything to you or the Batarians.
Didn't do anything. Aside from colonizing a world that could have been ours. Aside from using resources that should have been ours. We were left to defend ourselves, but the humans were stronger than us. We knew that. The Council knew that. But it didn't matter. It was you. You and your kind are the only reason we're in this position.
Now, quick note on the side here, what I think goes overlooked a lot of times is that he does make some good points here. Still, those points are hardly a justification for destroying an entire planet.
How does killing innocent people make up for that?
We had no other options. Sometimes you need to get someone's attention before they'll listen.
The Elysium dialogue option here refers to the Skillian Blitz, a major Batarian assault on human colonies.
Is that what Elysium was? A way to get our attention? Well, you got it. And when we responded, you ran like cowards. Now you want to start it all over again.
Enough! You couldn't possibly understand. Actually, you just don't want to understand, and I'm done wasting my breath. Now, if you want your friends to live, I suggest you step aside.
Now, did I mention before that I love the choices that Bring Down the Sky presents us with? Making the choice with Charn was hard enough as it was, and this one right here is probably one of the toughest in the game. Now, we'll choose first and then I will explain later, but we are going for the Renegade option here. Sacrifice the hostages, but do not let Balak get away.
I'm not letting a terrorist like you go free. Do what you want with the others, but it'll be the last thing you do.
I hope this is worth it! I'm going to enjoy gutting you.
Alright, that decision earned us a whopping 25 Renegade points. However, in the end I think that's worth it. Not only because we still need Renegade points, but also in terms of the storyline. Now, Balak can by all means be defined as a terrorist. His plan that we just barely stopped, that plan included killing possibly millions of human people. And I think that alone is enough to decide that under no circumstances can we let this guy walk. Because he does not only seem to hold a grudge, he's on a mission. And from all we just heard, that mission doesn't stop here. If we let him walk, another disaster like this is bound to happen at some point. And who knows if we'll be able to save the day again. After all, Balak does not only seem to have resources, he also has the intelligence to use them, and that makes him an incredibly dangerous person. Now, I know that it's cruel to let the hostages die in this case. However, one could very morbidly argue that they are lucky to be alive in the first place, and then again, sometimes you simply have to make tough decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't see the arguments for the other side. Sticking to the moral high ground here is absolutely viable as well. Balak will of course live to see another day, but then again our job was never to kill him, but simply to avert disaster. And in that, we succeeded. Now, for the last seconds of the fight itself here, Balak and his bodyguards should be the main concern, but generally speaking, if you stick to the upper level, this is one of the easier boss fights in the game.
You humans think you're so superior. But you're no better than us. I gave you a chance to save them and you threw it away! Who's the real terrorist here?
Now, we could stray a bit on the extreme side here and kill him right away. However, just like him, we have a bit of a point to make here.
You and I are nothing alike. You killed those people. You pushed the button. And now you'll pay for it.
Go ahead, kill me. I'm not afraid to die. But know this. One day soon, the human race is gonna pay for what it's done.
Once again, he might make a good point here, but we only have the option to answer with arrogance.
Do you really think the result would be any different this time? An attack against us would be suicide.
No, not this time. We've learned from our mistakes. We'll be ready. There are thousands more like me waiting their turn, each one willing to die for our cause.
This is what I meant earlier when I said that Balak definitely has resources, but at this point it's questionable how much use he will get out of them.
And they chose you for this mission? Then I guess we have nothing to worry about.
Believe what you want. When the vids flash with images of your colonies in flames, you'll know the Batarian rebellion has begun.
One last attempt to get a bit more information out of him, but I don't really have high hopes here.
Who's your leader? Who's orchestrating all this?
I'm through talking. Just kill me. Get it over with.
Right now we once again have a choice. We can do as he says and put a bullet in his head. We can also leave him to die slowly or leave him for the Alliance. Now, our goal was to bring him down and stop him from escaping, but not necessarily to kill him. And despite the recent Renegade streak, Shepard is still a man of principle, so we will put even this guy's fate in the hands of the Alliance.
You're not going to die. We'll drop you off on Terra Nova, let Alliance officials deal with you. I doubt they'll be too friendly.
This isn't over! This is just the beginning for the Batarian nation!
Is it safe?
Well, considering the circumstances, I would say as good as it gets.
That was the last of them. Can you tell if the asteroid's stable?
You did it. Another hour and our course would have been irreversible. I ran the numbers, Shepard. X57 would have struck near the capital city, the most densely populated region. But that's not going to happen, thanks to you. Have you found Katie and her team?
Well, kind of, but I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you.
Balak murdered Katie and the others. Blew them up with a bomb.
All of them? Katie? And her brother, everyone? How could this happen? I thought you were... Couldn't you save them?
Well, we had the choice, but that's probably not what we should say here.
You need to understand something. Not everyone out here in the big bad galaxy likes humans. It's not safe. Some days the bad guys are gonna win. You ask me, the good guys made out pretty well today.
So this son of a bitch, this Balak, they're gonna lock him up, right? Not in some cushy cell with extranet access, but someplace hard. Mean.
Oh, I'm with you on that. And also because it gets us 2 more free Renegade points.
Someplace where it hurts just to breathe.
I can live with that. Shepard, thank you for my grandchildren's lives. I don't think I'll stick around, though. Not with the team gone. Too many ghosts. It's time for me to get back and spend some time with my family. Before I go, I'd like to offer you something. Maybe you'll have more use for it than I will. As lead engineer, I get some quality items. Take your pick. You've earned it.
Now, this is one last interesting decision here. There are charm and intimidate options here, but they don't give any morality points. They are the only options that allow us to acquire an insanely good Omni tool, however, one that is, in my opinion, much more valuable to us than the armor that he offers. So, since he's retiring anyway, he probably won't need that Omni tool anymore.
I know it's a lot to ask, but that Omni tool of yours? I could really use something like that.
Shepard, I think I mentioned that you saved my kids and grandkids. What's an Omni tool compared to that? You take it, with my blessing. I hope you get good use out of it.
Now we can also quickly turn in the missing engineers assignment.
One more thing. You asked me to look into your missing engineers?
Have you found them?
Yes, all of them. Their bodies, anyway.
Oh. I see. Well then, I guess it's better than not knowing.
Take care of yourself.
Be well, Shepard. We owe you.
And here we are, that is the Bring Down the Sky DLC completed. And with that we are now back to square one. Last time I created a survey, this time just let me know in the comments what you would like us to do next. Again, we could go to Vermeer to continue the main quest line, we could do a few more side quests, or we could complete the Pinnacle Station DLC. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked this episode, then leave a thumbs up, and I can say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.